So, alright, I'm basically doing a part 3 of this video because part 1 and part 2 are doing their thing, and I gotta make a part 3 of this thing where I gotta get Mr. Beast's attention. The one and only, the one who's literally about to get 100 million subscribers. So I'm planning to do 300 right now. So yeah, it's just gonna be quick and simple. Well, I'm gonna pretty much say his name 300 times this time. And if it gets his attention, well, we stop at 300. And if I don't get his attention by part 3, I gotta make a part 4 and so on, like part 4, 400, part 5, 500, to a point where it's gonna get probably gonna be like part 20, where I literally had to do 2,000 or something like that. But it doesn't matter. So we're just gonna do this and see how long it will take me to get his attention, because I'm already on part 3 and I'm gonna have to do 300. You know, pretty much, but technically I already did 300 already, which is part 1 I did 100 and part 2 I did 200. So that's 300. So I'm basically already doing 500 or 600, I think. And well, I just gotta wait and see how long this will take. So yeah, time to start on part 3. Alright, so that's where I gotta hold the camera up for who knows how long. But alright, here I go. And if I mess up, either you guys could either figure it out or let me know, or I'm either gonna find out once I'm editing this video. So I just hope I get this right. Alright, here I go. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, that's 5. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, that's 10. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, that's 15. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 20. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 25. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 30. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 35. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 40. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 45. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 50. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 55. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 60. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 65. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 70. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 75. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 80. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 85. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 90. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 95. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 100. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 105. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 110. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 115. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 120. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 125. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 130. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 135. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 140. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 145. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 150. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 155. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 160. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 165. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 170. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 75. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 180. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 185. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 190. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 195. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 200. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 205. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 210. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 115. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 120. 220. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 225, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 230, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 235, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 240, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 245, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 250, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 255, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 260, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 265, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 270, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 275, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 280, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 285, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 290, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 295, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 300. And in case you guys don't know, I don't have the greatest memory, so I'm gonna have to do a couple more because I'm pretty sure I lost track. Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 205, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 310, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 315, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast, 320. I hope I got everything right. And again, every time I do one of these videos, my arms always end up sore at the end. Ooh. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much 300 in this video, and that was part 3. Hopefully he will recognize part 3, because third time's a charm. I hope, that's what people say, but I don't even think that's true though. They just see what happens. If it doesn't work, then I guess I'll do a part 4. But anyways, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please, I appreciate if you give it a like. I appreciate you subscribe, and I appreciate you share it to your friends. And I will catch you next time whenever I upload another video, and hopefully it'll be something crazy. Well, anyways, all right. Yeah, I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.